I flew across the country, wearing a deep emerald silk gown that cost more than my sister Chloe's annual income, only to have my mother declare, "Sorry, you're not invited." They thought they could erase me from their perfect 30th anniversary party. They didn't know I had secretly paid the $120,000 bill for the entire St. Regis Ballroom, and that the Centerpiece antique they were bragging about was legally mine. I walked in an uninvited daughter, and I walked out the CEO of their Humiliation. The drive from JFK into Manhattan had been seamless, a sharp contrast to the constant, grating friction that defined my relationship with my family. At 35, I was Vivian, a corporate litigation attorney based in San Francisco, specialized in high-stakes financial maneuvers and asset protection. My career was built on the meticulous, cold logic my family always criticized as heartless, while simultaneously demanding my free financial advice. I had accepted the label of the uncomfortable daughter, the one who earned too much, asked too many questions, and refused to play the family's endless game of favoritism. The family centerpiece, the golden child, was my sister, Chloe. At 32, Chloe was an aspirational lifestyle blogger who had cycled through various failed ventures and relied entirely on my parents' rapidly depleting trust fund. Her existence was a perpetual performance of effortless, non-threatening mediocrity, which my mother, Elaine, adored. My successes, my million-dollar deals, and my independence were seen as threats to their fragile social standing, largely because they shone a harsh light on Chloe's failures. My parents, Elaine and Richard, were celebrating their 30th wedding anniversary. They had chosen the Astor Ballroom at the St. Regis in New York City, a venue that screamed old money and untouchable status. I was told the party cost an absolute fortune, a fact Mother never tired of repeating to emphasize the new level of wealth they supposedly commanded. What they didn't know was that, 6 months prior, they had faced a severe liquidity crisis tied to one of Chloe's reckless business loans. To save their credit rating and prevent a public embarrassment, I quietly injected capital into their holding company. As part of that highly conditional loan, I assumed full fiduciary control over their major expenditure accounts for the year. This anniversary party, all $120,000 of it, had been paid for by a wire transfer directly from my holding company to the St. Regis, disguised as a payment from Harrington Family Investments, LLC, which I alone controlled. It was a calculated gift, secured with a lethal financial leash. My planned gift, the piece de resistance, was the 18th century French secretary desk, a stunning antique that was currently displayed on a raised platform in the lobby, awaiting its official presentation. The parents had already started showing it off 2 months ago, boasting about its provenance. However, because of my deep involvement in financial structuring, I hadn't simply bought them the antique. I had executed a complex financial maneuver known as a sale-leaseback. I purchased the desk under my own LLC, gifted it to them under a perpetual lease agreement, and retained the right of revocation, the clawback clause. If the donee, my parents, committed any act of financial or reputational damage to the donor, me. It was the ultimate, legally binding, conditional gift. I had created the perfect financial insurance policy against their inevitable betrayal. I arrived at 7:45 p.m., exactly 15 minutes after the official start time, accompanied by my partner, Mark, an investor who understood my family dynamics better than anyone. He was my emotional support and, crucially, a highly intimidating witness. We walked past the ornate marble columns of the lobby, and the sound of the string quartet drifted from the ballroom. I was halfway to the main doors when Mother spotted me. Elaine was a vision of tightly controlled vanity in a gold sequin gown, clutching a glass of champagne, her face flushed with the pride of a successful hostess. Her smile, the one reserved for public display, froze instantly when she saw me. She dropped the facade entirely and rushed toward me, her heels clicking angrily on the marble. "Vivian, what are you doing here?" she hissed, grabbing my arm with surprising strength. "You need to leave. Right now." Mark immediately stepped between us. "Elaine, that's enough. Vivian is here for your anniversary dinner." My mother adjusted her grip, now focusing her venom on me. "No, she is not. Richard and I decided, after your absolutely scandalous outburst at Christmas, I had dared to point out Chloe's mounting debt to them, that we simply cannot risk you ruining our 30th. This is a night of celebration and refinement. Your invitation was revoked a week ago. Chloe was kind enough to inform you. I hadn't received a call from Chloe, who was too cowardly to deliver bad news. I had received a cryptic text from her saying, "Don't bother," which I had ignored. An invitation to my parents' anniversary, revoked by text? I asked, raising an eyebrow, careful to keep my voice low and cutting. In front of 200 guests, Mother? You really are committed to the public spectacle, aren't you? Just then, Chloe glided over, dressed in a pale pink dress that looked like a cheap imitation of a couture piece. She beamed, radiating smug self-satisfaction. "Oh, she's here," Chloe chirped, adjusting the fake diamond pendant she was wearing. "Vivian, honey, Mom told you. This is a night for people who are close to the family. You've always been so distant and cold. It would just be awkward." Elaine pulled her close, emphasizing the favoritism. "Chloe's right. You're simply not needed. Go home, Vivian. We will send you a program later." It was the final, total public exclusion. The moment I had been waiting for. I saw a few of my parents' closest friends watching the scene unfold, their eyes wide with poorly concealed curiosity. This was my stage. I smiled, a slow, deliberate smile that didn't reach my eyes. I reached into my clutch and pulled out two things. A copy of the contract for the St. Regis payment, and the legal documentation for the antique sale leaseback. "I understand," I said, my voice rising slightly, clear enough to carry to the nearby onlookers. "You want me to leave, but only after I've fulfilled my financial obligation to this evening's festivities. That is entirely fair." My mother looked confused. "Financial obligation? Vivian, we paid for this ourselves. We don't need your charity." "Oh, but you do, Mother," I countered smoothly, tapping the St. Regis contract. "You see, 2 months ago, I covered your short-term debt and, to prevent further ruin, took control of the Harrington Family Investments, LLC. Every major expenditure, including the $120,000 cost of this spectacular ballroom and catering, was paid by a wire transfer from my personal holding company. I essentially prepaid your entire reputation management for the night. I paid for this party, not you." The color drained from my mother's face. She looked like she had just swallowed a shard of glass. Chloe gasped, her pale pink dress suddenly looking very, very exposed. I then pointed to the antique secretary desk, positioned dramatically under a spotlight near the entrance. "And speaking of payments, look at that magnificent antique. My parents have been proudly telling everyone that I gifted them this stunning 18th century piece. They are partially correct." I held up the sale leaseback document. "I purchased it, yes. But as a corporate lawyer who specializes in asset protection, I executed a leaseback agreement. I retained legal ownership, and they were the lessees. The agreement includes a punitive clawback clause stating that if the lessees, my parents, commit any act that causes financial or reputational damage to the donor, me, I retain the immediate right to revoke the lease and seize the asset." I folded the paper and tucked it back into my clutch. My mother began to stammer. "Vivian, you wouldn't dare." "I would." I finished for her. "You have publicly humiliated me and attempted to exclude me from a family event that I legally funded. That constitutes an extreme breach of familial duty and reputational damage to the donor, witnessed by multiple influential guests." I then pulled out my phone. "I will not be staying for dinner, but I will be taking my property. Mark, would you call the security office? I need 3 men and a dolly immediately for the removal of the French secretary desk from the premises." I then looked at the St. Regis manager, who had approached, sensing a crisis. "Sir, please be advised. As the authorized signatory for the HFI, LLC account, I am placing an immediate stop payment on the $120,000 wire transfer, due to a fundamental breach of contract and service failure. The Harrington family will be settling their account with the hotel directly before the main course is served." The manager looked between my panicked mother and me, his eyes wide. My mother, Elaine, let out a choked sound, reaching for me, but Mark firmly blocked her. "No," I told her, my voice steel. "You wanted to teach me a lesson about being uninvited. I just taught you a lesson about controlling the purse strings. You wanted to show off your wealth. Now you will explain to 200 of your dearest friends why the antique centerpiece is being carted out, and who is going to pay the bill for the dinner you just disinvited your daughter from." I nodded to Mark. Within minutes, 2 venue workers and a heavy-duty dolly arrived. The velvet rope around the antique was dropped. I watched, my heart strangely calm, as the beautiful, ornate desk was carefully strapped down and wheeled out of the St. Regis lobby, passing right by the open doors of the Lavish ballroom. My mother sank onto a nearby velvet bench, her gold dress suddenly looking tawdry, her face a mask of utter, public devastation. Chloe stood frozen, finally understanding that her easy life was built on a foundation I had just blasted away. I took one final look at the scene of shattered ambition. "Have a wonderful anniversary, Mother," I said, a final kiss of contempt in my voice. I linked my arm with Mark's, and we walked out of the St. Regis, leaving behind the deafening silence of a financially and emotionally ruined evening. I still had the $50,000 of my own wedding fund, the $120,000 from the canceled payment, and my antique desk. They were left with a massive bill, a stolen centerpiece, and the shattered fragments of their fabricated reputation.